kingdom of God is inside you and all around you, not in the buildings of wood and stone. Split a piece of wood and I'm there. Leave the stone and you'll find me.
Welcome to the Gnostic Hour, a space where ancient wisdom meets modern inquiry and deeper questions lead to expanded perspectives. Each episode, we explore such topics as philosophy, consciousness, and human evolution, bridging the teachings of the past to the realities of the present. Drawing from lifetimes of lived experience and 4 decades of conscious evolution, this podcast offers reflections not as doctrine, but as an invitation to question more deeply, to perceive more clearly, and engage life with greater awareness. It is a place where curious minds can evolve. This is the Gnostic Hour. I am your host, Siobhan Nicolaou, the Sword of Truth. Let us begin. This episode is called God, Gods, Goddesses, and the Love of God. I'm going to try really hard to stay on track because there's so much information here. So I'll have to make more videos. These titles that inspire these talks are from your questions that are sent to sovereignmastery@gmail.com. So thank you for your input. And if you ask questions, maybe your question will inspire the next episode on the Gnostic Hour. So the first question is, what exactly do you mean by gods or goddesses? Well, the gods have been here since the beginning of time. The gods, if you are listening to things on the internet, talk about the Anunnaki and these varying species of beings that have been here on the planet, some for really good reasons and some for not so good reasons, mining the gold or mining the souls of the humans. The gods were sent here in human disguises for different reasons. Some of these spiritual gods are here to actually override the human soul and upload it into their own AI systems. But it's under a different disguise, it's under the guise of something else. Because humans were like computers that were absolutely erased, we have forgotten who we are and been on the search ever since. Many of us. Some people just give over. Oh, this is what it is. This is who I am, and this is what I'm doing. No problem with that. No problem. But history has been written in a way that empowers these teachings that are thousands of years old, that continue to perpetuate the illusion of separation in the minds, the hearts, and the evolution of humans. The only avatar, God, if you will, that has walked the planet, that was the integrated embodiment of all that is, to become, to be, to live, and to teach the message of unconditional love, was Yeshua. As history would tell you, as a young boy, young man, he went off for missing how many years? 18 years? As it was said, going to India, going to Egypt, going to the Himalayas, going to Tibet, wherever, and learning from the masters. Every god here has a reason for being here. His message of wholeness and how to achieve that condition within human form is what he brought to this planet. So yes, he is the savior of mankind because he possessed the one vibration of love that empowers the human to make themselves whole, to discover the kingdom of God within them. Now, this week, I was woke at 2 a.m. That's not unusual. I sat and I got quiet and I listened, I meditated. And what God told me was that he was not sent to learn from the masters like people limit the story to be. He went to learn how the other gods in the world were operating, where they were operating from, in their systems of separation, in their systems of mind control, emotional control, and the control of their souls. This is the way their star beings knew how to get humans to give their soul to them as energy sources, to upload their power off-world. So Yeshua went to learn about how the other gods operate here, offering them the gift that he had from the totality of his being, and said, this teaching, this consciousness incorporated into your old-time systems will transform the systems themselves to help humanity evolve into the love they are, and subsequently the God consciousness. Love has been the missing key. The unconditional love of God has been the missing key in all of the practices on earth thus far, except the ones that I continue to teach. And I don't mean that to sound arrogant or like I'm smug, but it happens to be a fact. I don't know anyone who embodies this work as I have done for the past 40 years. I know of no one. I don't read people's books. A lot of people talk about alchemy, but they know alchemy, but how much they actually do it within them without it just being a manipulation of the pictures. I'd like to see what people are doing out there. Like I say, I don't read other people's books. I never have. I don't sit there and look at Gaia to try to find out what I want to know. It's from within me. So that was what Yeshua was doing. He was there to learn, of course. He had to find out what the gods were doing in the world, because he had this precious message, which was to save humanity. The savior of humanity is the unconditional love of God that transforms all duality within the mind, in the heart, and in the soul. Not one master, not one master took those tools, that consciousness and that wisdom, and applied it to anything. Because if they had, this world would not be in the shape it's in right now. He was young. And let me tell you, being younger than some of the people around you, with the way they feel they need to be placated and have any kind of wisdom that is actually beyond their understanding, their comprehension, can create a lot of contention, competition, when there is no competition. It's just a piece of the puzzle. I'm offering you this piece of the puzzle. It'll be a game changer. It'll evolve everything into what humans need to become whole within themselves. Nope. Because if they can't manipulate the human, they can't get what they actually came here for. So when we look at all of the masters and gods in the world, how many of them have actually been there to empower the human from the inside out? And then, like in my practice for 40 years now, the few people that actually take the tools seriously find out what I'm saying is actually true. It's the only way I have found that what I teach is actually true is by continuing to do the work. It never ends. And it's the only way I've ever emancipated myself from what people would look at, treacherous situations, where I even saw it as being treacherous. I just knew what to do in the presence of what showed up, so I could learn from it and become whole within it, within the conflict that it arose within me. So thank you. Every god of light and every god of darkness, if you want to look at it in the dualistic perspective. And anything not here from the love really isn't coming from the light that I was taught it was. I was taught that light was good. Like I felt so different coming out of the darkness I didn't even know I was steeped in. It's another way to view things. There have been some beautiful off-world beings of light that I've had the absolute honor to be working with, who truly have my best interest at heart. Just like this being, which is the God, telling me, well, I don't see it as a being, I just see it as nothing. It's a consciousness. Telling me to let you know that that was the true story in history. Because it puts these lineages above his wisdom, which is the only consciousness that will set man truly free. Because you don't disempower them by doing it for them in any way, shape, or form. And these off-world beings have many powers. Supernatural powers we have forgotten that we have within ourselves, and the way to those powers, the only thing I've ever had to do to become who I am is form within me the ego that keeps me separate from that experience, period. Western world especially fascinates themselves with all these bells and whistles and look what I can do, and they're not doing anything actually, or they're channeling something, and looks impressive, but it's not about the person, it's about the consciousness. I've never called myself a healer. Nope. So that's what gods are. That was the message I got from God. He also said that Yeshua was rebuked behind closed doors because it was too much for these systems to want to hear. When I switched from white light to gold light at a certain point in my path, from straight up channeling, working with the white light, which is pure bliss, right? Pure spirit, into the golden light, which made me whole within myself. I felt it so deeply when they told me that was what was going to happen, that I could not ignore what I felt. And that's the only time I've ever felt anything so deeply. So I have learned through the use of the golden light, which I continue to use, what it actually means to be in a spiritual ego where you're blinded by your own light. Where, what do you mean? It means that I have to be less than what I want to see myself to be? Oh yeah, as long as you're in form, you've got an unconscious and a subconscious. I don't care how full of light you are. And if it's not integrated, it's going to be creating problems everywhere, knowingly or unknowingly. That's just the way this world works, this reality. So none of us are like immune to it, but we sure can think we are. Integration of your inner duality will give you a whole nother story, and then you get to rewrite it again. In that same transmission, God wanted me to set the record straight. That what Yeshua said on the cross was not, God, why have you forsaken me? It was, God's, why have you forsaken me? Why have you rebuked behind closed doors this gift I gave you to become more and more of your true self, to be able to truly help humanity? It was God's, plural. He got no support. He got no support from any of the gods, because all the gods I've ever met are in it for their own mission. And if everyone was working for the same goal, they would work together, but that's how I learned they weren't. Not every god is here for the same reason. And the collective goal is not to become whole. Because if it were, then love would be the key to get you there, rather than manipulating your experience and uploading your soul. God is whole within itself. Love is the key. How many times have you heard that? You're never going to know, experience, or anything what I know unless you do the inner work to arrive at the same conclusion within yourself. And it won't even be the same conclusion. It'll be this other aha moment you have from within the wholeness and the different eyes that you then see reality with. It's all part of the grand illusion here. All part of the grand illusion. So it was the gods that had forsaken him. He couldn't understand why he wasn't supported, why they didn't want the one thing that would save mankind. He learned that the gods don't work together, that they build their individual temples in the liking of their own entity that is off-world, so they can have a foothold in this world. The kingdom of God is inside you and all around you, not in buildings of wood and stone. And though these are holy places, they're built with higher harmonics. That's why they feel so good. It's wonderful to be in a building where that's been part of it. It's lovely. But to skip the step of love, self-love within your own experience is to try to go from here to there without becoming whole first. You just go one to the other. That negative emotion stays here on this planet when you die. The body dies. Negative emotion has to stay here because it's too heavy to go into another realm. So that's why we have all these disincarnate souls all around. This is why people believe there are demons, because whatever negative imprint you've left here before, you come back into form, you catch back up with it in resonance, it becomes bigger in your experience, or people are manifest around you that, make that emotion within you bigger. And then you want to split it off and call it something else. That's not the way it works. It's not separate from you. Even these projections I'm aware of, when I make somebody in the light or whatever angry, when they feel whatever they're feeling, knowingly or unknowingly, in regard to what I have to say or the choices that I make, I'm aware of it when they send it. I'm aware. But I also realize they know not what they do. Because when you're that blinded by the light, you don't see how those feelings in you project onto what you're focused on in a negative way. And some of them believe that doesn't matter because they are gods. And it doesn't matter. And humans don't matter anyway, because humans are there for their service. But actually, the gods are here for us. They should be here for us. They should be here for us. So it can be a true give and receive without doing to get. But like a loving parent holding that love for you and not turning that away from you ever, regardless if you choose to leave home. And when that's not the case, then you have your answer. So it takes a lot of responsibility to live in this dimension and carry so much light. But times are changing. These old ways are not going to sustain themselves. And I absolutely feel, from what I've learned, that is why they're holding on so tight and trying to grab a hold as many people and souls as they possibly can. Because they know it's not going to be in the next new world. This man and woman roles, these outdated identities, love is the only thing that is going to help humanity truly become whole within itself. If you want peace on earth, you have to have love. So far, it's just been a whole lot of manipulation. Let me give you some examples how that works. When I've transformed the conflicts within me over the past 40 years, it has absolutely changed the frontal lobes of my brain to give me a neurobiological shift from the inside out. Many of you have no idea what I came in as and where I've come from and what stands before you today and the difference. I know that it's lasting because it's lasting, because my perception is whole still, regardless of what I go through, because I continue to do the inner work to transform the conflict. So I created my own neurobiological shift. Now, in my pursuit about 5-6 years ago, uh, a dear sweet man, Bill Sweet is actually his name, from the Midwest, I was asking him about resources to have myself hooked up to machines to be able to prove that the inner work that I do does in fact do what we say it does, what we know it does, and have scientific proof. So he gave me some names to some universities, and I wrote these letters and got responses. And, one of them said, well, if we find that you're not delusional, you know, let's say you're not delusional, this still requires money in order to, utilize this equipment. And so I kind of laughed because I'm like, wow, they must get a whole lot of input from a whole lot of people who are trying to prove a whole lot of things, and it all sounds crazy to them. So I totally understood that what it really takes is cash to be able to work with these guys. So I just kind of let it go. But God has a way of dropping information into my reality. And I was watching some brainless show on Netflix, I think, and I came across a documentary from a guy named Dr. Persinger, who was from Canada. So I wrote him a letter. I tried to get a hold of him only to find out he had passed. But he did an experiment on the human brain and created a helmet called the God helmet from these experiments, showing that when you stimulated certain areas of the brain, it gave people what he called the God experience, that they saw God, they felt God, all this kind of thing. So what does that tell you about how manipulatable we are from an avatar perspective, who is mastered form and knows human physiology and knows everything about a human to be able to play with it? So the God helmet, this is a way you could be in that state all the time by just having your brain manipulated. Cool. We can do that within ourselves. There are also beings of light here who can expedite that process. But when it's undone from your brain because you walk away, when the entity actually leaves your body after you've denied it access to it, then you find that the healing that took place undoes itself, not because you're being punished, but because the entity has to live within you in order for you to stay in the state that it was when it was healed by the entity. But when your brain is undone, it's like you're reset to your factory settings. From where you were in your consciousness level when you began this pursuit of this other thing, you are reset back to that. So I know the difference because I experienced it with a healing and with a neurobiological shift that happened through the entity's manipulation. Very interesting. But that's how I found out that it's not lasting unless you continue to give the entity access. I'm very grateful. Oh my God, am I grateful? Because what it did was it taught me that, yes, what I do is enough. What I have the capability of doing within me is it, because it's lasting. And if you're not making the love of God conscious within you, every little bit of, and transforming the issue that got you there to begin with, it's never going to be lasting. The conditioning of healing the physical body has been so thick that one's a tough one for a lot to, it's a lot to get over. It's not just a mind over matter thing. It's a consciousness within matter thing. So it's a whole nother ball game. Just different levels to play the same game, right? To overcome the game of duality. It's really kind of neat. So there's that. 3 different ways you can experience God. The fact that we don't utilize our whole brain is what really drives people or keeps them in the illusion of this 3D experience, the dark and light and everything else. And even people accessing higher consciousness at times, if they're not whole within themselves, it isn't going to be the perception that they have continually throughout their day. It's not lasting. Goddesses have been forever used in a female form for the amusement and pleasure of men. That's going to go away. Think about it. It's not the form ever. It's the energy within it. When you look through the lens of male, female from a very old spiritual or otherwise perspective, you don't like to see a feminine or an energy in a feminine body being able to do what you do. It's just not the way it's done. And they'll tell you that. You don't need to do that. Look what I do. This is what we do. You sit over here and you be beautiful and we will adorn you in jewels, and you will dance and you will sing and you will hold the people in this compassion that only you have. Not. It's not a gender issue, people. It's what you've been told. And this is another level of separation that perpetuates through these teachings. If you want to be the embodiment of the ultimate feminine woman and that brings you joy, do it. That was my Nona. She loved being a woman. And she let a man take care of her. She never gave her power away to him either, though. That wasn't the expected of her. He just wanted to see her happy. He didn't manipulate her. He didn't make her give up her values. He just said, express yourself in the way that you are here to express yourself, and I'm going to love you, and I'm going to revel in that expression. I loved my Nona. He was amazing. She was amazing. Their life together was amazing. She sang, she danced, she cooked, she cleaned, and she loved her life. And he loved her. And let her be who she was designed to be without any expectations put upon it. I would think that would be, from a more evolved perspective, what a man of today's spiritual practices would want to see. Problem is, humans don't become whole enough within themselves to allow that to happen, or they think that that's what a spiritual man is supposed to do, so they're going to act that way. Or they form a men's group. So they are around men that understand them, where understanding comes from love, and love doesn't have a gender, and anybody can embody love if they really want to. But as long as we're holding on to these outdated identities, wholeness is not going to happen between what we view as men and women. The things I have heard over the years that I have known gods, the parts they've wanted me to play, none of them have loved me enough to allow me to be who I am. I never went and said, I'm going to be this. I became who I am through learning how to transform the conflict within myself. And from that, all of my, quote, powers came into play. And God would put me in front of things that I learned to listen to him for instructions about. But I never owned myself. There were many gods in my life who saw my power and never wanted me to come into it, maybe because of this message, right? Because someday they knew that I would find the courage and the wholeness within myself to have the courage to speak this voice about why Yeshua traveled, the message he brought to the masters that he brought it to, how they didn't want to integrate what he had into the puzzle because they really weren't here to help mankind in the way love can help mankind. And to also have the courage to say, to change the story in history about what he actually said on the cross. Because this message getting out to the people that it will reach is going to make a lot of people angry, because this is part of the system that has to change. It has to change. Enough of this manipulation. Enough of thinking that any one of us is better than the other because of what we know and what we can do. If you want to impress me, which we're not asking you to try, but show me how you love. That's what God says. Show me how you love, because everything else is just a show. Everything else is just a show. And even love is a show in spiritual circles. I'll open my heart and act all loving to lure you in, to show you how unintegrated I am, and then to tell you you created it for your own growth. Oh, the egos. There's a lot of truth in that. But if you're doing the inner work and you're the only one doing the inner work, that gets a little old, because they use it as an excuse to let themselves off the hook of any responsibility of their part in the dance. I'm just really over that. All the world is a stage, so says Shakespeare, so it is absolutely true. Everyone here is wearing a mask of some kind, wearing a disguise. I've played a lot of parts in my life, being a mother, being a wife, being a rancher, being a gardener, being a sommelier, being a cashier, being a banker, whatever, to negotiate life. But I have always been who I am, regardless. I've been accused of masks, but the only mask we actually have in this dimension is the mask of our negative emotion. And when we transform negative emotion, our true self is revealed. It doesn't matter what the outer package looks like. It's really what it's like underneath. But if you have both, it's really appealing and pretty rare. So it's all part of the construct. It's all here to teach you about going inward and loving yourself to become whole, rather than, playing these games. It's all in here. So nothing is happening that's incorrect. Everyone just has this whole smorgasbord of things to get involved in. But again, if they're not loved, then they're really not useful here. They're just part of the carnival. It's like a huge carnival here. Yeshua's voice remains the largest voice, and it will continue to get louder, albeit through these veils that are separated within their interpretation of what that actually means. This is why it's happening, because his gift was suppressed, oppressed, rebuked, and he was crucified before he could actually make it a thing on this planet that could be lasting for mankind himself. He was not supported. He was not supported. He came here to be the game changer for the consciousness within all the old systems. I gotta say that there are ancient systems that were brought to me that I have changed through incorporating the unconditional love of God within all of it, and change the whole system to be more of what is appropriate for mankind. There are people I've worked with that said, why don't we just do this? And I said, no, just trust me on this. Do it like this and see what happens. A whole nother experience, a whole nother conclusion arrives, a whole nother experience arrives because of what I've learned with this consciousness of unconditional love. Change systems that were created at a time where it was absolutely appropriate. When human consciousness, they had to be manipulated in order to get them to see it because the veils were so thick they couldn't any other way. That's why channeling was so great, because we could not access these higher dimensions within our own being. We had to leave the body, so to speak, to get there. But since the harmonic convergence, that's all changed. And that's when I got my big wake-up call. Like, my life's never been the same. And many of us experience that in different ways. I'm really happy to say that, I was woke up the same time Esther Hicks was, and I was, woke up the same time Joe Dispenza was, and I was woke up the same time Paul Selig was. We all went through dramatic shifts during that time. And there are other people, other colleagues and things that I know as well. And the difference in this world is being supported or not and making different choices. I didn't even think I was ever going to have a child. And I'm sure glad that I brought the one I did into the world. And I know what it's like to be busy and still be this being that I am and bring that where God has led me, just negotiating regular life. I can't even tell you. It doesn't matter where I go. There we are. Kind of a cool path. I've always thought, from the purity of my heart, that these beings that I put above me were actually here to work together. And it took me so long to realize that we all have different goals. And if the goal is the same, then it would happen. And the reason is because they're not humans with a human heart. They're extraterrestrials that don't know what that means. Raw power versus that raw power through the lens of unconditional love, which would have transformed all of the systems that are so beautiful into something completely different for now. One can only imagine, but here we are. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Gnostic Hour. If you would like a reading, or if you would like to know how to work with us, email me, sovereignmastery@gmail.com, with your questions, with your comments. And also, just check my link in bio, and you'll see what we're available. We're focusing more these days on courses. A reading is usually a good segue. It's usually a good introduction, so we can get a bead on who you are and the best way to guide you on your path forward. The courses we want to promote now more than ever, so people learn how to feed themselves, right? It's the old saying, the old Chinese proverb, give a man a fish and feed him for a day, teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Well, we're kind of the latter in that. We've been doing a lot of services that are really beautiful for a lot of years, and it's time that we teach the next generation. So these new systems aren't lost when I leave the planet. Nobody knows when that's going to be. So that'll be part of the legacy I leave behind, are the systems that we have changed by incorporating the unconditional love of Yeshua into them, to make them whole within themselves, and a way that the people can actually experience them from the perspective of wholeness as well. So let us know what you're interested in, and we can absolutely guide you. Thank you.